So, in a controlled environment with only so many places to hide, the rebels and peacekeepers somehow managed to elude each other for months. It's time to talk about the For All Mankind episode, The Sirens of Titan.
Spoiler alert! Shields up!
So we start 6 months after the launch of Sojourner,
Which means we've just had a pretty big time jump since last episode.
and Sojourner and Cosmos 1 are both nearing Titan.
Except Cosmos 1 got there first. Hang on, didn't they say last episode that the trip will last 18 months?
Well, it's possible that Ada was talking about the full mission, including staying 6 months on Titan and returning home, which would still lead to numerous physical issues for the crew of Sojourner being in zero-G for most of that time.
Well, they're nearing Titan now, and Cosmos 1 is having issues decelerating.
Even though Sojourner are lagging behind, they're on the same trajectory, so they're worried that whatever's happening to Cosmos 1 could end up happening to them too.
So now these two ships are working together?
Well, they can't ask Star City for help, as it would take far too long for any radio transmission to get to Earth and back again. So it's pretty lucky there's another ship nearby to advise them. Sure is, and even though they're lagging behind, Sojourner are doing all they can to help Cosmos 1.
Sadly, it doesn't work. Cosmos 1 have used all their propellant and are now being pulled into Saturn's orbit instead.
Dang, those Russian ship designs are still problematic. Remember the issue they had in Season 3?
Please don't remind me about that rushed, poorly planned mission and the subsequent ludicrous rescue or anything else to do with Season 3. Seems the writer take particular delight in constantly reminding us that season existed, above and beyond all the others.
And never mind the massive issue the crew of Sojourner will have to deal with for having spent so many months in zero-G. They're now going to have to find a solution to slow down enough so they don't end up dying and crashing into Saturn like Cosmos 1 just did.
So, no pressure then.
You're pretty hung up about that zero-G problem, aren't you, Doc? The Sojourner has no artificial gravity, GG. It's like a big space shuttle. 6 months at zero-G would cause profound systemic physiological adaptations, effectively aging the body rapidly and requiring intensive rehabilitation upon return to Earth. We're talking bone density loss, muscle atrophy, permanent bone changes, heart shrinkage, vision changes, and other serious health effects. Well, maybe they exercise one off-screen. Exercise would help, as all real astronauts do, but it doesn't stop the effects. It's like putting your finger in a hole to stop the dam from bursting. In real life, Kelly and the rest of the team would be useless, unable to do anything by the time they land, and there's no one on Titan to help them recuperate.
That's where all those robots and automation will have come in handy.
Exactly. They're automating in the wrong place.
Well, that's a later problem. We now have to catch up with what's going on Mars.
I bet things are really tense there, what with them having taken hostages and all that, plus the Marines should have arrived by now, right?
Actually, we just catch up with Lilith and Alex checking the plantation in one of the large domes, with Alex being worried for his mom because news has already reached them of Cosmos 1's fate.
At least there.
So, hang on, hold on just a sec. Last episode there was a race to get the last few hidden weapons before Palmer got them all, right? And Palmer's done nothing for the last few months, and no one's found him or the other peacekeepers in all that time? Like, where can you hide in a small city that you can't be found? Everything's connected, and there's really no other places to get to.
Well, there's the ISN base, I guess.
The ISN won't help, Gigi. They're no friends of the M6.
I guess we're about to find out.
And Lee's just wandering around and working with the others as if nothing happened.
Boyd knows Fred killed that other guy, so news must have spread and he's free and clear now. Let's give the story a chance to breathe before we start ripping it to shreds, okay?
Always the generous one.
It turns out the ISN has indeed been helping, but not Palmer. The rebels, as you suspected, Doc. But now, due to pressure back on Earth and their understandable unwillingness to start an actual war back there with the M6 nations, they have to regretfully stop that.
And during a meeting where Del, Gerardo, Boyd, Lee, Mayakovsky, our favorite Russian doctor, and others, we learn just where Palmer and his team have been hiding. With Dev. What? How? That doesn't make any sense.
I guess getting beat up by rightfully angry Martians really pissed him off and he switched sides.
He never really switched sides though, did he?
Well, how so?
He was part of the automation plan to replace 98% of the workers with robots, remember? So he was always going to side with Palmer. My only issue here is, how did that happen? And how come there's been a standoff for 6 months? It's not like he can easily go anywhere. They're all stuck in Happy Valley. Mars is not that hospitable to humans anywhere else.
I still don't get how Dev was in favor of so much automation, which would have destroyed the Mars population, since he had a dream to build a city for 1 million people there.
Yeah, Dave's motivation makes zero sense.
And it makes even less sense now.
Getting beat up must have made him even more determined to get rid of those pesky humans.
So we learned that Palmer and his guys have been sabotaging the food supplies. So with that, the ISN cutting them off, and their crops not ready for harvest for months yet, they have 2 months left of food.
Well, that's going to be tough on the population.
Especially when Mayakovsky suggests cutting rations even further, as he and the original settlers did. You know, harking back to season 3 and all that.
They're never gonna let us forget, are they? I think they're actually super proud of that season, McCluck.
And with all that uncertainty, 200 people signed a petition asking to be allowed to go back to Earth, which is apparently something they have to talk to Aleida about.
So, hang on, just let's rewind there for a second. There are 2 factions on Mars, with our rebels pretty much in charge of the food supply, and Dev and Palmer doing as much sabotaging as they can. But where's their food supply?
I'd love to know that too. I guess they steal what they can from the rebels?
Here's hoping we get an answer to that in time.
So, Polivanov and the other, well, hostages, for lack of a better word.
Prisoners?
That's a good one too. Including the Kuregan delegation, are doing the daily exercise, which consists of walking around the tree at the center of the base.
Oh look, Irina's there.
And she somehow managed to get information from the motherland, because she's resourceful and all that. Polivanov's pretty much persona non grata back home, and not only that, but his wife's been arrested and will have to denounce him in order to survive.
It never rains, but it pours.
Meanwhile, we catch up with Palmer, bringing back medical supplies to Dev's side.
Okay, and how did they get those? The rebels have no guards looking after sensitive areas?
Looks like they don't.
And they haven't blocked those tunnels Dev secretly built?
Well, maybe they did, but maybe Dev has a ton of secret tunnels.
And how can you build secret tunnels anyway?
Secretly.
So, Palmer just grabbed medical supplies with no issues.
That's about right.
How have the rebels managed to control the base for 6 months? They may not survive for much longer, though, since Dev's group are themselves also getting desperate despite their amazing unstoppable raids, magical tunnels, and seemingly endless food supplies. Dev tells Palmer in order to turn the tables on those pesky rebels, he has a risky plan.
What's he gonna do?
We'll find out later, as Sojourner just got a message from Aleida. They suspect that what happened to Cosmos 1 was due to their rushed departure and not enough data on Titan's atmosphere, and she's sending them new info. But she doesn't look hopeful.
Well, Walt, the commander of Sojourner, decides to abort and plans to slingshot around Saturn instead to go back to Mars.
So they would have gone to Titan for nothing?
Everything's been too rushed, and look what happened to Cosmos 1 as a result.
But if they can slingshot around Saturn, surely they can orbit around Titan instead. I mean, come on, they've come all this way.
They would likely use more fuel, and it would be too dangerous, and they'd risk dying like the Russian crew.
Would it, though?
That's his decision, and they're aborting.
Kelly's gonna be pissed.
Oh, undoubtedly.
So Dale asks Aleida if it's possible to organize it so those who want to go home to Earth can, and what with everything else that she has to take care of, she'll see what she can do. So which side is she on anyway? I think she's on the side of, science. Taking care of the satellites, ships, shuttles, and maintenance and everything.
And while that's happening, Polivanov's wife is doing her broadcast denouncing her husband. But she's blinking strangely.
It's Morse code, which Polivanov figures out.
And no one else who organized her speech and filmed it did.
Well, I did, even before Polivanov.
Yeah, I did too. Guess the Russians are as bad with noticing secret blinking Morse code as they are planning successful space missions.
It makes you wonder how they managed to reach the moon first all the way back in season 1.
That blinking Morse code isn't that big of a deal, though. Her message is simply, I love you.
Oh, how sweet and how sad.
And during his next chat with Irina, he learns that the Soviet leader is pretty much cornered, which is why he's blaming Polivanov for all the mess on Mars and the loss of all the iridium. But maybe she's postulating there's a way to overthrow him and put Polivanov in charge of the Soviet Union.
Well, how's that gonna work with Polivanov being held captive on Mars? That's a bold strategy. Let's see how it works out for them. And speaking of bold strategy, Dev's risky plan is put in motion.
He's pretty intense, which makes even Palmer have second thoughts.
What the hell's he planning?
My money's on destroying the cornfields. Well, which brings us back to where his side's food is coming from.
I'd say magic. After all, they all look pretty healthy with no obvious rationing. Heck, Palmer seems to have put on a pound or two.
But if you're right, Gigi, and they're going to bomb the dome, that's going to put Kelly and Alex at risk.
Why, it's 3 a.m.
Because it's Alex's birthday, and Lilith's got a surprise for him there.
Uh-oh.
It's a sweet moment and all, as Lilith organizes a surprise flash mob with a group of friends, and everyone's having fun until Lee arrives, and then he joins in too. It's all fun and games.
Until Palmer breaks the dome.
I told you, So it's goodbye, so long, have Vidas, and farewell to the whole young Martian generation?
No, at least some of them survived. We see Alex being bandaged up. We see Lee too, and Lilith. But they didn't all make it. One died.
Just one? Huh. Talk about luck, considering.
6 domes have been destroyed, and some emergency rations that were stashed under one of them were totally lost. They've now only got 2 weeks of food supply left.
Talk about a bold move. That's not going to endear them to the rebels.
And 2 weeks of food left will be disastrous, since even if they gave up now, they won't have enough rations until a supply ship can get to them from Earth.
And obviously, more Martians signed the petition to go back to Earth, and that includes Aleida.
The shock of the attack is getting to everyone, even Palmer and Dev, who weren't expecting anyone to be in the domes at that time. War as hell. They should have known that, even if I still can't understand how they can do all they do, even having access to spacesuits to attack from the outside.
Seems there's no such thing as security on Mars, and everyone and anyone can go in and out of anywhere and everywhere as they please.
Meanwhile, back on Sojourner, Kelly sends a message of support to Alex, and then comes across that plaque Alex had given her before she left.
The plaque Ed had on his mission to the moon?
The very same. And it somehow gives her an idea.
So, the idea is to counter Walt's trajectory to slingshot around Saturn and go back to Mars, and instead use the latest calculations she had sent earlier to, hopefully, safely orbit Titan and land.
And she did that without anyone noticing?
Well, it looks as if it was made to appear like Walt put in the wrong program for the burn sequence.
Just how did Kelly manage that?
However she managed it, they're on their way to Titan, baby!
Back on Mars, there's nothing they can do but listen to Sojourner's broadcast as they attempt to land.
And they'll suggest the whole base should hear it. After all, whatever happens, this is a Mars mission, and they all deserve to hear what's going on as it happens.
How long's the delay? Between 70 and 90 minutes, depending on the orbit. So whatever they're listening to has already happened over an hour ago. Yes, but through the magic of editing and storytelling, it looks like it's happening right then and now.
And after a tense few seconds when the signal is lost, Sojourner made it.
I knew they would.
And Mars celebrates. All of them.
And the little ship that could, which traveled for 6 months across the void of space, lands on Titan.
And the crew have zero effect from all that time in 0G.
None whatsoever.
Isn't the magic of fantasy grand?
It's the best, McCluck. The best. Not.
And all 5 crew members walk down together and step on Titan as one.
At least there was no ridiculous slapstick stupidity like when they landed on Mars for the first time.
No, just stupidity that they could all stand up and walk without any issues after all that time with no gravity.
Well, I'm just puzzled and confused as to how all this can work. I mean, I can understand it if it was all based on Earth, where food is easy to access and the air is breathable everywhere you go, but just how could Dev and Palmer hold off the rebels for so long and even get the upper hand?
Well, they have tunnels.
So what? Tunnels have major vulnerabilities. You can collapse them, seal them off, guard them, but none of that seems to have crossed the rebels' minds, and Palmer comes and goes as he pleases. I mean, how can you just waltz into sickbay and take medical supplies? Why would that area be left unguarded?
And where do they get their own food? Surely stealing from the rebels wouldn't be nearly enough.
And come to think of it, their air. Remember Total Recall? Cutting off the air supply to part of the city was how they controlled the revolt in that movie. How are Dev's side still breathing?
And although it was sad Cosmos 1 didn't make it, we didn't know the crew, never met with them or even saw them. So we didn't really feel much of anything when they crashed on Saturn.
Well, they were just a MacGuffin to get Sojourner to Titan.
Maybe they survived, somehow.
To be honest, anything's possible on this show. We didn't see the ship crash, did we?
Well, actually, we never saw the ship even once, unlike Sojourner. Speaking of Sojourner, Kelly sabotaging the return trip felt ludicrously too easy, especially since no one suspected she did anything, and, of course, let's not forget the lack of effect of 0G on human beings.
You can't forget it, but the writers certainly did. And yes, it's ridiculous Mars could hear what was going on as Sojourner was trying to land on Titan. But I'll let that go for the purposes of tension and storytelling.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can let that one slide. But what about how Irina can secretly communicate with people back in the Soviet Union while being locked in her room?
Maybe she had a really long pipe which she used to talk to someone, like she did when she was in prison.
That must be it. A really long pipe all the way back to Earth.
Makes as much sense as a lot of other stuff.
Blowing up the domes was pretty dramatic, though.
Oh, it was. And it's a miracle only one of them died in the process. In real life, none of them would have. The dome would have exploded in seconds as soon as it was breached. The airlock would have been automatically sealed to protect the rest of the base. and no one would have been able to make it back.
We all have to be thankful for plot armor.
Indeed, it's just not the show I fell in love back in seasons 1 and 2.
We're a very long way from those seasons, McCluck.
And don't I know it? We're left with just far too many questions as to how Dev's team can do all they do, how they themselves can survive when they're cooped up in such a tiny area, while the rebels appear to be so utterly incompetent to boot.
And whatever's happening on Titan doesn't have the majestic feeling of traveling to another world even the first Mars mission had back in Season 3. It's almost like an afterthought, and Kelly's sabotage felt just way too easy. Especially when you remember how hard it was to sabotage the Phoenix in Season 4 to do pretty much exactly the same thing, alter the course of an object so it can safely orbit a planet.
And on top of that, there's no real feeling of tension or danger. I mean, yeah, killing all the kids in the dome would have been too much, but realistically speaking, that's exactly what should have happened. And hell, Dev should have known there might be a possibility of casualties.
I just don't understand Dev's motivation anymore.
Still think it's the gravity playing with his brain?
At this point, could you come up with a better explanation?
I'm at a loss too, Gigi. This was an episode that felt like it was running by the numbers, while at the same time, those numbers just didn't add up.
And whatever happened to those Marines? 6 months is more than enough time to have sent them from Earth to Mars and crush the rebel scum.
Chalk that up to more numbers that don't add up, Doc. So yeah, one episode that leaves us with way too many questions which will likely never be answered because they can't, as they don't make any sense in any kind of reality. Anyway, that's pretty much all we have to say for this one. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I'll give you the response you deserve. And on top of that, there's no real feeling of tension or danger. I mean, yeah, killing all the kids in the dome would have been too much, but realistically speaking, that's exactly what should have happened. And hell, Dev should have known there might be the possibility.